Rahim. Oh, thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Jazakallah khair everybody for jumping on to our very first YM National Halaqa. I'm very excited to see all of you guys, and at least I can speak for myself here where I am definitely in need of something like this right now. And I think a lot of us can relate when a lot of our situations drastically have changed in the last maybe 2-3 weeks alone. And I think about all that's happened in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and subhanAllah, even for myself, it's been a whirlwind. It really has. A lot has changed for me in what I've been doing, whether it comes to work or whether it comes to YM, whether it comes to my family life, my home life. Everything has really switched on me. And I think what really makes this situation something that is amazing and at the same time unique, that normally, and I'm coming from a perspective where I'm used to somebody knowing what to do, I guess you can say. I'm used to my parents having that experience. I'm used to mentors knowing what to do. I'm used to scholars knowing what to do. I'm used to whatever I'm going through, having my imam, someone I can go to for advice on someone who can help me through this. But this situation, subhanAllah, nobody living has experienced something like this. And so the ulama are trying to figure things out. You see that by how the Jum'ah cancellations are happening left and right. The masjids are being shut down. And like, well, the CEOs, the smartest people out there, whatever you want to call them, they're trying to figure it out. They don't know what to do. People are being laid off. People are being forced to work from home. Some companies can't do that. And so now everything is switching on us. Our presidents, our governors, all of our leadership is experiencing this for the first time together. And so one thing we have to realize is that maybe right away that this is a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, hey, maybe we should stop relying so much on the creation and start moving ourselves to the creator, the one who made all of this possible. Maybe we should start putting our trust and our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the one who made everything possible from the good that came before and the situation we're in right now. And maybe this is a reflection that all of us need to have. Number one is that when you go out, and we're so used to it, and I myself included, I mentioned myself in this situation, but I know many of us go through this, where we're used to going and asking for advice here, asking for advice there, asking our parents what they think because they know, or that person knows, or that sheikh knows, or that imam knows, but this is a brand new ballgame. And this is something all of us are experiencing for the first time. It's actually pretty incredible, if I were to say so myself. This is something that's so unique to all of us, right? And this is something that we're all experiencing as human beings together, Muslim and non-Muslim. But it reminds me of a story and something that's been happening in recent times in New Jersey, at least, is I had the chance to do a tafsir of different surahs with a bunch of guys I know. And subhanAllah, I cannot tell you how relevant everything that we just talked about before this happened is today. And there was a class that came to New Jersey, and the New Jersey guys know what I'm talking about. And it was taught by Imam Umar Sulaiman through Al-Maghrib, where he talked about the trials and tribulations of the Prophet Ayub Alayhi Salaam. And this is a prophet of Allah who's not the ones who we always talk about, the ones who are always heard of, like Isa and Musa Alayhi Salam, Ibrahim Alayhi Salam. We have all these different situations, or we have all these different prophets who we go to, and they have their own special right on us, right? We learn from all of their stories. But one story I wanted to talk about was the story of the Prophet Ayub alayhi salam, a prophet who's not as well known as the ones that I had mentioned. But his story is unbelievably relevant to what we're going through right now. And I don't want to necessarily talk about all the different problems we're going through right now, because we've been doing that. We've been talking about that for the last week or two. Everybody knows that this is a problem, right? I'm on WhatsApp chats too. I've gotten the links. I've gotten link after link telling me that I have a 5% chance of getting it. Oh, no, you have a 90% chance. It spreads through air, it spreads to the ground, it spreads through everything. It's on your hands, everywhere. We know this. But now we need to talk about what are we going to do from here, because as Muslims, we don't stop at just complaining. We have to take it to the next step. We have to be proactive with it. And so I want to talk about some of the lessons and the story itself of the Prophet Ayub, as Imam Umar Sulaiman taught us. And so the story of the Prophet Ayub really begins when we talk about what he had done throughout his life. Prophet Ayub had lived for 80 years, having a life full of good deeds, a strong family, a strong community, a strong build. Ayub alayhi salam was a prophet of Allah, but he had it all, so to speak. He was someone who's a devout servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the story goes that the angels are talking about Ayub alayhi salam, and Shaitan hears about this, and he becomes jealous, as Shaitan does. And he was angry that Ayub alayhi salam was being essentially talked about as something of being a true believer. And Shaitan went to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and told him that Ayub alayhi salam is only worshipping Allah for his own self-interest, because Allah had blessed Ayub alayhi salam, so of course he's going to believe and he's going to worship in you. But as soon as the trials start facing Ayub alayhi salam, as soon as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes anything away from Ayub alayhi salam, then as mankind will, he will be found ungrateful. And he will leave the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something the Shaitan says. And I want you to think about the situation right now, about how when he's talking about Ayub alayhi salam, but he's not just talking about Ayub alayhi salam, he's talking about mankind. Or yeah, when things are good and you have everything in front of you, we can say, yeah, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yet what happens when we lose what we think is so like ours? What's good? When we lose what we're not grateful for? What are we going to do in that moment? And the Shaitan is banking on Ayub alayhi salam leaving the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the Ayub alayhi salam is starting to put through some tests by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He puts him through a couple of different tests. And so the first trial was of his wealth. And the story goes that Ayub alayhi salam was walking and a servant came up to him and told him that a thief just came and stole all of his oxen and his donkeys and whatever else he had and killed all of his servants. And this servant was the only servant who lived to come and tell him. And just like that, all of it's gone. And then at the same time, another servant comes in and says that a fire burned down all of his sheep. And the servants, and he's the only one who survived to tell him. And then at the same time, another servant comes in and says that a bunch of bandits came and killed all of the servants and took all of the camels. All the servants that were with the camels. He took all of that. And back in the time, you have to understand that this is like someone taking all of your stuff. Someone coming and robbing you, like cold-blooded. Someone taking your car, taking your home, taking everything basically from you. And this happened in the blink of an eye. And suddenly Ayub alayhi salam lost all of his stats, all of his wealth. It's like your bank account going from like 60,000 coming in a day to having absolute zero in your account. And this is something that happened instantly for the Prophet Ayub alayhi salam. And not something that just gradually over time happened, but something that he lost. And how does Ayub alayhi salam respond? It says that the Shaitan came to Ayub alayhi salam in the form of a man and told him that he lost his wealth because he gave too much away in charity. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took it all away from him. What are you going to do about it? And how does Ayub alayhi salam respond? He responds by thanking Allah immediately and saying that this was a loan from Allah and how everything is from a loan from Allah. And he recognized that this money wasn't his money. This money was given to him by Allah and it's going back to Allah because that's where it belongs. It never belonged to Ayub alayhi salam. And so I want you just to understand the psychology of when you lose everything that you worked so hard for, because it's not like wealth just comes to you, right? There's a little bit of earning to it. And to have it being lost or taken away, to have this understanding, this belief, this perseverance, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gave the loan and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who took it back. And how can you be mad about that? And this is just the first trial of Prophet Ayub alayhi salam. There are more. And then after, when this has already one that's so bad and you really just feel for Ayub alayhi salam in this situation. When you're reading about this, another trial comes. And this time, the trial is his children. And a servant comes up to the Prophet Ayub alayhi salam and tells him that his children, his 10 children, 7 boys and 3 girls, were killed while being in a house, and the house collapsed all over his children. And so immediately, the Prophet Ayub goes from being a father of 10 to having no children at all. And I can't stress to you, because we hear about this all the time, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, most of us, I would think, have not gone through this trial right now because we're not parents yet. And we don't know. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us how deep of it like this was. And we know that there is no love like a parent's love for their child, not even the child's love for his parent. Think about it. When your mom or your dad, when you realize some of the sacrifices that they made for you, they made for all of us, and you start to think that maybe these are the only people in your life who are living their lives for you. They're not living their lives for themselves. They're living their lives so that our lives are better. And subhanAllah, to have that taken away so suddenly and so quickly, just in the blink of an eye, it's something that's unimaginable, and I can't even fully comprehend it or describe it. And one thing I think about is even the sudden nature of it, right? You know, I know many of us only maybe, I think it must be 2 months now since we got the news about Kobe Bryant passing away, right? And whether he's Muslim or not, and many of us can't deny how hard that hit us. You know, because it wasn't about just, we just lost, we lost Kobe Bryant. But at the same time, the sudden nature of it, he was in the news the day before when normally he wouldn't be, because LeBron James passed him on the all-time scoring list. And the next day, to get the news that Kobe Bryant was killed. Shockwaves across the world. Now, I want you to imagine that feeling that maybe some of us have, just because Kobe was a hero to some people in terms of how he played the game, how he became a father later in life and conquered the demons that he had. And now we're talking about not, at the end of the day, some stranger, someone we don't really know. But we're talking about our own flesh and blood, our children, the one who the parents bring into this world. But that's just it. The Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam immediately goes into submission, and he says, to Allah belongs that which he has given and that which he has taken away. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the one who brought them into this world, not Ayyub alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who breathed the soul into every one of his children. And at the end of the day, these are his children, but they are Allah's servants. And they belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to Ayyub alayhi salam. And yes, it's the same concept of losing your wealth, but it's not, because these are your children. These are your flesh and blood. Think about all the family, how much of a bond we have with our family. To have them taken away, all of them just like that, and to have the faith, the perseverance, the tawakkul, to say, hey, this all came from Allah, and to him will all of them return, as they did. And so the Prophet Ayyub passed another test, but that's not the end of the story. And so the third trial comes to Ayyub alayhi salam, and that is of his health. And Imam Sulaiman mentioned this in his class, that the scholars agree that health is the greatest blessing after Iman. And there's a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ where he says, the one among you who wakes up secure in his property, healthy in his body, and has food for the day, it is as if the world were brought to him. And so I ask you guys right now, that I know some of us, just to be sensitive to anyone who may already have been going through this, I will say that maybe not all, but most of us, or at least a good majority of us, have not had to deal with actually being sick yet, or have to deal with actually being sick and losing our health to that degree. But this is exactly what happened to Ayyub alayhi salam. When the wealth wasn't enough and the children wasn't enough, now his wealth wasn't enough and his children weren't enough, now his health is taken from him. And now he loses, and the inside and the outside, his body starts to deteriorate, and his flesh and his skin would start to fall off. And not just that he would go through this struggle, but also when people saw him like this, they would leave him. They were like, ooh, like this guy smells, this guy looks bad, this guy just looks like he's like gone. We can't be near this guy. We can't smell this guy. We can't this is contagious. We'll get this from him. And so all the followers, all the people who were with Ayyub alayhi salam slowly start leaving him. And it says Ayyub alayhi salam had those 80 years I mentioned where he had nothing but good, or had a good life, or had a steady life. But this hardship lasted for 18 years. 18 years. We're freaking out about 18 days probably. And a little bit more than that, but just understand that he went through this struggle, not just on the outside of the virus around or whatever, but to lose his wealth, to lose his family, to lose his health. all of this, he suffered for years and years and years. And still, he would not give up his faith in Allah, his perseverance, his patience, and his understanding that everything came from Allah. And so when we go into this story, we have to realize that it's not just the Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam who's going through this struggle, but also the wife of Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam was with him throughout this entire time. And she's not a prophet of Allah, but she is someone who's going through the same struggle. And it got so bad that Shaitan started realizing, man, I can't convince Ayyub alayhi salam, so let me go to his wife. And he starts reminding her of the good old days and starts reminding her of her children, of her wealth. And he tells his wife to tell Ayyub alayhi salam to ask Allah to alleviate this situation. And she goes to Ayyub alayhi salam, and what does Ayyub alayhi salam say to her? He asks, how long have I been in this situation? This is 18 years. And I don't want you guys to get so caught up in the numbers, and maybe scholars could disagree on whatever the numbers is, but that's not the point. 18 years. And then Ayyub salam asks, how long have I been given the mercy or the blessing of Allah, had a good life? And that was 80 years. And he says that until the hardship goes as much as the good times that I had, I will not ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to alleviate this. SubhanAllah, look at that patience. And I don't want you again to get caught up in the numbers, because it strives to be a bigger point. That, yeah, it's been a rough time for Ayyub alayhi salam, but he has not forgotten that what is considered normal, for all of us, what's considered the everyday life, me going to the masjid, me hanging out with my boys, playing ball, whatever it is only normal because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so. And so that's an understanding that Ayyub alayhi salam had, that it's not an accident that 80 years things were cool, things were fine. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it fine. And even what's considered normal is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not something that's a granted or given to us. But Ayyub alayhi salam understood that. And he said that he will not ask. And yet at the same time, and Imam Umar put this as well, that at the end of it, she was correct, that you could go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and should go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help alleviate any issues that you're going through. But I still want you guys to understand the reasoning, the understanding, the wisdom of why he decided not to. Because to him, all of this suffering and pain is nothing compared to the mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given to him. But then as the story goes on, and this is when the story starts to reach its conclusion, is when the wife of Ayyub alayhi salam had it so bad, because she was the only one who could work at this point to give money and to make money and to bring food and to survive with Ayyub alayhi salam. All right, guys. Thank you. Ayyub alayhi salam is the only one who could provide at this time. And what she was doing was she started working out of town and trying to go anywhere she could. But finally, it started following her that, oh, this is the wife of Ayyub alayhi salam, and they were worried that this was contagious. And they would not hire her at a certain point. And so what does she do eventually? She cuts a portion of her hair and sold it to get the food for Ayyub alayhi salam. And this is what you can call sort of a breaking point. Right now, like, are physically seeing his wife as well have to sacrifice so much for him. Giving up her hair, something that, should never be doing. But it was all to make sure Ayyub alayhi salam was okay, because this is a struggle and a trial they had to go through. And on top of that, Ayyub alayhi salam is sitting in his home and he only has 2 friends really left in his life, and then his wife. And they start having a conversation that Ayyub alayhi salam was overhearing, but they didn't know he was listening. And they start saying that, man, why is this happening to Ayyub? He must have committed a sin to be in this state. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could not find any goodness in Ayyub alayhi salam. And they start thinking about leaving him as well. And the Prophet Ayyub is hearing this, that he suffered for 18 years. And he's being told, or he's hearing his friends leaving him. A total isolation. And a real isolation, not the isolation that we are going through right now. And his wife had to give up her hair, and his children gone, and his wealth gone, and his health gone. Everything that makes him stripped away from him. And finally, the Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam tries to fall into sujood, but he was in such weak shape that he couldn't even properly do that. And finally, he reaches out to Allah and he calls to Allah and he makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah mentions this in Surah Anbiya, ayahs 83 to 84. And it goes, and remember Ayyub when he cried to his Lord, verily distress has seized me, and you are the most merciful of all those who show mercy. And so we answered his call and we removed the distress that was on him. And we restored his family to him and the like thereof, along with them, as a mercy from ourselves and a reminder for all those who worship. And so what happens here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears the Prophet Ayyub calling out to him, Ya Rabb, the most merciful of the merciful, please help me. And this issue has come to me and you are the one who can bring me out of it. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? He tells Ayyub alayhi salam to kick his foot on the ground, strike the ground. And the water came gushing when he did so. And this is kind of a symbolic thing, and it's something that you can relate to when you hear about the story of Prophet Ismail, when he kicked to the ground and the Zamzam water came out. And this is the same situation where Allah tells Ayyub alayhi salam to strike the ground. And once he does, this pure water comes out. And from that water, Ayyub alayhi salam drinks, and all of a sudden his health is restored. And he's back to who he was. And so later Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings him back his wealth. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes even a step further. And most scholars agree that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did is he brought the 10 children who had passed away, who had been killed, he brought them back to life. And then on top of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Prophet Ayyub 10 more children. SubhanAllah. And this is something we always talk about, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us more than what he's taken away. And it's the story of Prophet Ayyub teaches us that. And finally his wife comes and she doesn't know that his health has been restored, and she sees Ayyub look like a man she once knew. And says, I don't know who you are, but you look so much like my husband. And then he tells her that it is me, Ayyub alayhi salam. And that is really where the story, at least for what I'm going to be explaining, is over. But it's a story not about the problems that they had, the issues that they had. And Imam Umar specifically said, if all we took from that class was that Ayyub alayhi salam suffered a lot, then we didn't properly learn the story. But if we understood that with every hardship there came ease, for everything that Ayyub alayhi salam went through, he kept coming back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala no matter the circumstance. If we understood that steadfastness, that patience, then we have understood the story of Ayyub alayhi salam. Just as we are in this portion of our lives right now where things are uncertain, we're not going. If we only think about this, inshallah we get through this. And if we only think about the hardship that we went through, then maybe we didn't understand the lesson either. But rather how we came together as believers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless of our age. Whether we're 80, whether we're 30, whether we're 15 or 20 in YM, we will remember that we came together on this night talking about this story and remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and remembering that everything belongs to Allah and that we will return to Allah. And if we can understand that, then we have learned not just the story of Ayyub alayhi salam, but the message that it really sends. And so with that said, that concludes the main story that I wanted to get through. But I did want to talk about a couple of little different gems, and I mentioned a few already. But some little bits of pieces of advice that I would want all of you guys to go to. I have 5 main ones. And the very first one is to understand that this story of Ayyub alayhi salam is the story of us. It's the story of humankind. Because at the end of the day, the Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam, yes, he was a prophet of Allah, blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's still a man. And he's an example for all of us to follow. And so I know this is a national Halaqa, and this is something I want to open up, inshallah. And obviously I told you that certain guys helped me out with this Halaqa. So I'm going to throw it to one of them right now because they had a point to add for this. about how we're calling on the same God that Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam called to centuries ago. I'm going to throw it to my boy Ahmed Suleiman from New York. If he has a point to add, inshallah, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, definitely. So number one, appreciate the talk that Danielle gave. Points that could be added to what Danielle talked about. Definitely people that kind of went through the same experiences that Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam did. For me personally, the two that come to mind is Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam and the circumstance that he faced where his wife was barren and basically he was of old age and they were basically unable to have a child. They were unable to get a children. And so on the part of Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam, he was desperate and he would constantly make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rabbi la tadharni fardan wa anta khayrul warithin. Oh Allah, do not leave me alone and you are the best of inheritors. Dua such like that, he would reach out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he was confident in that dua being accepted. Despite the impossible circumstances that were presented to him, ultimately he did get that child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that blessing. Why? Because he chose to conversate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He chose to open up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the circumstances that he faced, about the obstacles that he faced. And another name that comes to mind is Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And when we think of Muslims these days as strangers, he was essentially the only Muslim living in his time in that specific period. And so the circumstance, the obstacle that he faced, where all the people in his tribe, all the people that he had to give da'wah to, they were basically non-Muslim. And so when it came to giving them da'wah, the treatment that he received from them was very harsh. And so when he attempted to give da'wah to them, they essentially were ready to kill him, They essentially wanted to throw him into the fire and basically kill him. And so when they were in the process of doing that, he was confident on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through interactions with him. And so when it came to the point where his people, his own flesh and blood, were ready to throw him in the fire, and when they threw him in the fire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did he do? When the circumstances seemed impossible, similar to the circumstances that were presented to Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam, where the circumstances seemed impossible, he was able to overcome them through his reliance, through his tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically told the fire to be cool and peaceful unto Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so he was saved from that circumstance. Why? Because he chose to open up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He chose to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if these examples, these prophets, Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam, if all three of them are able to open up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why can't we, as just regular neighbornet guys, why can't we do the same thing? Throwing it back to Danielle, I'm pretty sure that he's got other lessons that we could also look forward to.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. And I mean, that's just the point, right? That at the end of the day, one thing I want you guys to realize is that whether we were talking about Prophet Ibrahim or Prophet Zakaria or Prophet Ayyub or today, all of them were calling to the same Lord who's still there now. This isn't just some history book about someone who reached out to some entity to help him. This is something that's living, a situation that's live, is something that we are able to do just as he was able to do, despite us never seeing him and us never understanding what was going on at the time of Prophet Ayyub. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not gone anywhere. And they say he's closer to us than the jugular vein. And this is something that we need to take very seriously, that the same God that Ayyub called to is the same God we're going to be calling to now. And we need to reflect on all the different things that we take for granted every single day. And we were doing the tafsir of Surah Mulk with some friends, and we realized that how great and how amazing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mulk, his dominion, his power, his control, and how little we have control. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions different things that were given to us, something that we think are like ours, but they're not. The ability to have water, the ability to make fire, having all these different things that we feel is human advancement, is something we have. But this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to us, and he can easily take it away. And having that mentality, having that understanding is so important. And that's point number one. The second point that I wanted to get through is that the key is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with absolutely no condition. And this is something the Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam literally proves, that he did not worship Allah because it was easy. or worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just gave him, because of the favors Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed him. Because once those favors were gone, Ayyub alayhi salam clung even harder to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we need to be content with the one who gives us rather than what he gave us. And a friend of mine was telling me that this is a proverb that the Arabs use a lot, and the translation is that contentment is a treasure that never perishes. And subhanAllah, if we have the life of people who are content, who understand, who are completely at peace, not with what we have or what we don't have or what we will have or what we won't have, but we're at peace with understanding that it is not up to us, that there is a higher being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who will decide what we have, and being okay with that. And that's something that we really learn from this story. And the next point is to really understand that we should not necessarily focus on the why. Because many will come and many will say, oh, why is this happening to us? What did we do? Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishing us? Is he testing us? That's not the question we need to ask, right? Just as the Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam never asked once, why is this happening to me? Even when his friends, his followers, everyone around him was saying, oh, what happened to Ayyub? Surely he must have sinned. Surely he must have done bad. But understand that whether this is a punishment or a test, we won't know that, except if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly says so. But what we can control is what we choose to do and what we take out of it. And so I think understanding like why good and bad happens, so it's something that I know Abu Danish from Florida, we were talking about earlier. If you wanted to give a couple points there, inshallah, about how we should be approaching that question or that thought process.
Yo, assalamu alaikum guys. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. Yeah, so before we answer the question, what should we do about all this? Let's back up for a second, right? And let's take a look at everyone in general, non-Muslims, Muslims. There's two differences. There's two different ways you can respond to a problem like this, right? One, and a common response you get from a lot of people is that when I was billah, God isn't real, right? When I was billah, God has abandoned us. Either he doesn't care about the world anymore or he doesn't exist, right? And the other response is that we're going through something right now, and this is a test that we need to get over. And the difference between us and them is that for them, when they pray to a divine figure, when they pray to a God, the help that they expect to receive is stacks of cash from the sky. The help they expect to receive is a nice big house and popularity, and everyone's nice to them and whatever you want to imagine. But all they care about is the dunya, right? We have our eyes set on something bigger. For us, if we don't get help in this world the way we want it, we know there's something better for us in store for the next world, right? We don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help that we want. We ask him for help that we need, and he knows what we need more than us, right? We know that in the day of judgment, that's when we need Allah's help the most. We need his mercy and forgiveness. And, you know, at the end of the day, it all comes down to one thing, and that's everything in life, whether it's, you know, your homework or whether it's a major life test, can either be a punishment or a test, depending on the way you look at it, right? If you get homework, you have a lot of homework, you can either look at it as a punishment, right? I have so much homework, my teacher's killing me, I'm going to be up all night, this is horrible, and it's going to be a complete burden on you until you finish it. Now, on the other hand, if you look at it as a test, as a way of improving, as a way of getting smarter, you'll go through it fast, you'll be happy through it, and that's the same way we need to view things in our real life today, right? In our real world today. This problems that are going around the world, it's not because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has abandoned us, right? It's because he knows that we can handle this task. There's no burden placed on us that we can't handle. It's because Allah knows that we can handle this task, and it's for us to go higher and higher and higher in the ranks of Jannah, inshallah. And before we jump to these conclusions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like us, that's why he's testing us, look at the people before us who have been tested the most, right? Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was almost bled to death walking out of Ta'if after being stoned, right? He was delivering the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when something wrong goes in our life, right? Who are we to think that when I was with Allah does not like us? Much better people than us have gone through a much harder test than us, right? And our responsibility is not to turn around and question what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing. Our responsibility is to do what Prophet Ayyub did, what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, was to turn back to Allah and ask him, Ya Allah, help me, because you're the best of helpers. Ya Allah, I know this burden on me is not a punishment. It's not that you hate me. It's because you love me and you want my rank to go higher and higher and higher. It's because on the day of judgment, when I look at all my good deeds, it'll be because I was steadfast through this problem and not because I complained. And yeah, Daniel, I'll throw it back to you. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. And I think he really puts it well. And that one thing I want you guys to see, when you look at things like a test, when you see this this whole trial we're going through as a test, you start to realize something. And it's that, why are we looking to have a perfect dunya when the dunya is not something we were ever able to fully understand anyway? The dunya is not meant for us to understand. The dunya is not even meant for us to stay on. But it is the akhirah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Jannatul Firdaus, and inshallah all 270 people here and everyone else will meet each other there. Inshallah, ameen. And I want you guys to realize that when you look at life that way, how much that changes everything. And really, like, when you look at this as a test, I start to bring it back to what I relate to, which is sports. And I think all of you guys know already by now, I'm a pretty big basketball fan. And the Houston guys are going to hate me. But why is James Harden someone who's not looked at right now as, you know, one of the best players ever or whatever, right? The guy's a scoring machine. He does nothing but score. But the problem is right now is that he's never gone over the hump when it's pressure time. And I'm not going to go ahead and say anything else, but this is something that LeBron James had to deal with for almost a decade. And he had to continuously have to answer the question that, yeah, cool, score 30 points a game, whatever, you haven't won anything. You haven't passed the test. You haven't passed that final test. But it's the ones who are able to do that, to get those championships, to get whatever it is, they're the ones who are seen as people who stepped up to the plate, who woke up in the fourth quarter, who didn't choke when the other team's best player got hurt, who didn't have a moment where when they were tested, how did they react? When they were put on the spot in the moment, what did we do? And just to go away from that for a second, what are we going to do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the opportunity now. Yeah, it's not normal. It's not a normal situation at all what we're dealing with. But if we rise to the occasion and we get that championship, which is Jannah, this is something we'll earn. This is something that we will step up to the plate and do what is necessary to get that ultimate reward and get that recognition from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, yeah, this servant did everything he could no matter the test that I gave him. And that's just another point I want you guys to really understand. And jumping into a couple last points, inshallah, I'll wrap up soon, is that Ayyub alayhi salam also, remember in the story, he refused to ask Allah to alleviate his condition because he had been blessed for so long before. And this reminded me of all the moments that we consider normal. And I mentioned this already, what we consider like, oh, like, why can't I go to the masjid? Why can't I go to Jummah? Why can't I go to this? Why can't I go to that? Why can't I go to neighbornet? And no realizing that normal, and every single time we said it, but maybe we didn't fully understand it, that Allah chose you to be there. Allah chose you to be in that gathering. Just as Allah chose us to be in this gathering, He really did. He truly did. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for us to not meet at the masjid, we didn't meet at the masjid. And we can't. You know, it's literally what it is right now. And this is something I want you guys to realize, even the normal stuff is something that only comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the normal stuff. And it also gets me to think in that everything we've lost, so to speak, and you know, it does hurt me that we can't have a neighbornet in the normal sense. We can't go to the masjid. I can't hear the khutbah at the masjid right now. But think about all the mercies that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us even in this. And it's given us the opportunity, number one, to spend more time with our family. I have never been home more than I've been right now. I work from home, alhamdulillah. I get to spend time with my family. I get to talk to my parents. And life has changed for me a lot over the last few years where maybe I haven't had the opportunity to do that because everyone's been moving around. But now, we got nothing but time, alhamdulillah, that we're able to talk. And we're able to just have a good time, right? And this is something that only somehow happens because of this test. And it's also an opportunity to reflect about our status with Allah, and an opportunity to look inward in what's not working within ourselves. And I have Haris from Houston, inshallah, who's going to go a little bit into that and just give a little bit of pointers there before I move on, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So, you know, a lot of times, as Danish said, you know, we go through our own personal problems. And a goal of YM has always been to, you know, create a brotherhood, create a space in which we can share our problems with one another. Be that at the masjid, be that at a friend's house, be that at a restaurant or whatever it is. But, you know, in these times, you can't really go anywhere. You're confined to your own space. And a lot of times what happens is your troubles and your issues end up taking the best of you. So what do you do in that time? Because you don't have that friend to go to anymore, right? You don't have that environment of a masjid anymore. But this is where we need to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not require an appointment. You do not need to set an appointment to have a meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no specific time of day. There is no specific day of the week, no specific week of the month or month of the year where you need to set a time to speak with your Lord. And us being in this situation where we have so much time to just think and reflect, let's take a moment and reflect upon ourselves. Because we all know what demons we face, right? And whatever demons you face is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And nobody can help you get through that as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can help you. So as we go about our days and as we, we're playing our games and, we have a Discord set up as well. And, and as you're going about that, take some time to, just kind of reflect upon yourself and kind of think that, hey, I've done so much, good, bad, whatever it is. Let me turn to Allah. If it's good you've done, go turn to Allah and thank Him for allowing you to do that good, for putting you in a position to do that good. And if it's demons and sins that you're facing, go to Allah with tawbah. Go to Allah with tawbah. We stay up for how long playing, COD, Fortnite, or whatever it is. How many of us stand up in the night and pray 2 rakat, right? Just for tawbah, just because there's something weighing heavy on our hearts and we need to just have a conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ was very known for doing, for standing up in the night and praying, because nobody had a burden on their shoulders such as the Prophet ﷺ had a burden on his shoulders. So his release was that nightly prayer. So after the order was given to him to read Iqra, right? After that order, what was he told when he went back home? He was told by the angel Jibreel that your Lord has told you to stand up in the night and pray. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for us doing that, and that is to relieve ourselves of whatever it is that we are going through, whatever hardships we are going through. And we need to understand that in order to persevere through the hardships of life, the end goal, there's no way you can do it without the support and the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your Lord. So just keep that in mind. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. And I think that really hits to that point I was mentioning at the very, very beginning about how maybe this situation is what's going to force us finally to recognize that we got to turn away from the creation and go to the Creator. And go to the one who made it possible, the one who can help us. And force us to, not necessarily put all our eggs in the basket of human beings. And we respect our scholars and we respect our mentors and our parents, of course. But ultimately, the one who will guide us, the one who will give us what we need is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now we're in a situation where you have the opportunity to just have isolation so that we can connect with the one who should be connected with. And this opens up a lot of opportunities for us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always open, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala closes one door to us, He will open 2 more. And it's something we hear at every damn fundraiser we ever go to, right? Like, oh, if you give, Allah will give you more, but it's so true. And this situation is no different. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken, whatever we choose to give Him, Allah will give us way more than this, whether in this life or the hereafter. And I had Ammar Siddiqui from Chicago, just to give a little bit of insight into some of the opportunities that we have now that we're in that situation, just to build on some of the things Harden said. And then this is the last point, and then I will go ahead and close after this, inshallah. But Ammar, I'll throw it to you. Ammar? I don't know if he's on or not. There's too many of you guys. But just so you guys understand, is that on top of everything that Haris had mentioned, we're also in a situation right now where Ramadan is right around the corner, and many of us are thinking. And
Sorry.
Are you here?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, assalamualaikum. So as earlier Danish mentioned that like struggles can be either a punishment or a test depending on how you react to it, right? And obviously right now the struggle that like the entire world is facing is coronavirus. So the question now is to each one of us, how are we reacting to this, as a punishment or as a test? And one of the key differences most of us are seeing in our lives because of the virus is a ton of extra time, whether it's from being from school canceled or being forced to stay at home because of quarantines. But and Daniel mentioned earlier also was that even in tough times like these, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up doors for other opportunities. And we have an amazing opportunity with all this time in our hands. But what are we doing with all that time exactly, right? And we know, especially as Muslims, the importance of time. We know that we're not supposed to throw that time around and waste it. We recognize that we don't know how much time we have in our lives. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even mentions in Surah Asr that He swears by time. And there's a wisdom for that to show the importance of time. And so if we're looking at this virus as a test, one of the ways we can treat it is as a test of using our time wisely. We know the concept of ihsan, of striving for excellence in everything we do. And we can use that time to figure out our life. A lot of us in high school or early college, and we could use this time to figure out careers. Or if you already have a career, you can use this time to build skills for your like professional life, like learn coding online or something like that. But along with that, along with developing ourselves professionally, again, ihsan, every aspect of our life, we should be also improving ourselves spiritually. With all this extra time, we have like more than enough time to go to sleep and wake up early for tahajjud, or have time to read the Quran with its translation. And especially because Ramadan is coming up, we have to prepare ourselves, and we have more than enough time to do that. And these are just some ideas, but obviously everyone has their own schedule. Everyone has whatever they have to work on, and we can figure that out ourselves. But we have to make sure that we have this opportunity of time, and we should use this opportunity wisely to pass this test that we're in right now.
And Jazakallah khair. And just to build on that, when I was getting to this as well, when we talk about Ramadan coming, I know many of us are thinking like, man, like I'm not going to be at Taraweeh this year maybe, or I'm not going to be able to break my fast with the community, or I'm not going to be able to go masjid hopping or post Taraweeh waves or whatever we do, right? And maybe subhanAllah there's a wisdom to even that, where now that maybe we're forced to isolate ourselves, and no doubt it's something that's going to break all of our hearts, even just thinking about it. But maybe that is what we needed to connect again with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have our own little retreat within our own mind and within our own heart to the one who made it all, to the one who made all of us. And to have that introspection is something that the prophets of Allah did consistently. You know, I was on the Halaqa yesterday where one of the guys was saying about how the Prophet used to go to the cave of Hira, and he would go and think about what's going on and ponder and reflect. And from that, you got to go have a talk with Angel Jibreel, and Angel Jibreel revealed word from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it brought back the greatest message that you could ever ask for. A message we're still talking about today. And that's the message, this deen of Islam. And that's an opportunity now that all of us need to get back to, that maybe we need to understand that we have to go back to our Creator, as I've been saying. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises us that if we take a step towards Him, He will take 10 steps towards us. And in the story of the Prophet Ayub, even in the dire situation, there was so much wisdom in how it was done. It's not like He just gave him everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still asked for that little bit of effort. Still told him to have that little bit of effort of striking the ground. Even something that small was Ayub alayhi salam taking that first step, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided everything from there. And Allah wants us to come to Him. It's not a situation where, he's too busy, He can't help you out. This is something that humans have. Something that unfortunately I know I give off sometimes. Oh, I'm busy, I can't help right now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will want you to come again and again and again. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how long it's been, it doesn't matter how many times you come. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give to you more than what He could ever took away, whether it's in this life or in the next life. And with that, these are a lot of the points I wanted to get through. Number one was that we worship the same Allah that Ayub alayhi salam worshipped, and we have access to the same Allah that Ayub alayhi salam had. And the key is to worship Allah with no conditions, and have the praise for Him because who He is Allah, not because of what He's given us. And to not focus on the why, but focus on the response. What are we going to do about it? And to not forget the blessings and the mercies that Allah gave, and take advantage and take this opportunity to have Allah open those doors to the one He just closed. Or whatever test that we're going through, Allah brings us more than this. And that's the essence of this halaqah. And I know there's a lot of different points in there, a lot of different gems, but it's all really to the same point. It's that now it's time for us to take that next step. Yes, we're going through it. Yes, we talked about it. But as the story of Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam is not about his sufferings, our story will not be about our sufferings. It'll be about how we came back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the Prophet Ayyub came back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and never wavered in going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, that's the true test that we can pass. And with this, I'll wrap up with a final reflection, I guess, of myself. And this is a very personal story, I guess, for me, is that distance really makes the heart grow fonder. You know, this has been a really rough time for a lot of us, including myself. And I kept thinking about it like, man, subhanAllah, I had to make a decision and stop all the neighbor nets, basically. And this is something I never would have thought would have happened. And yet it's something that we had to do. And something I keep thinking about is that what I'm thinking back to my first neighbor net ever, right? The first time I came to YM, or the second time I came to YM, and the first time I walked into those doors in Piscataway, in MCMC, that masjid. And so many of us have those thoughts in our mind, right? That story in our mind that maybe we forgot. Maybe it became so normal, became so part of the routine that our minds and our bodies went on cruise control, and we forgot how precious that Friday is, or that Saturday is, that Sunday is, whatever day it is. And we forgot how much of a blessing it was to come in every single week. And they say that those who grow are the ones who challenge themselves. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is challenging all of us now that this has been taken away from us. So it's only been a couple of weeks, but Allahu alam how long this is going to last. But just think about this test as something that's going to make us better and appreciate it a little bit more. I just want you to imagine that feeling of the next time you walk into a neighbor net and a halaqah once again, and may Allah make all of us have the ability to do that. May Allah allow every single one of us to have that moment again and to cherish that moment even more than we ever have, maybe even more than that first time, because it'll be the first time all over again. Beyond YM, beyond neighbor net, think about how soft that carpet's going to be at that masjid when you go back for Jummah, or when you go back to pray Fajr or Isha. How we can return back to the home of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and have that moment again. Think how precious it'll be. It'll be like the first time feeling that you can never get back. We always talk about that. We'll get it back. We'll get that feeling once again. And I ask Allah to make that possible for us. And one final reflection is, somehow, and I felt so strongly about this. I'm not a big social media guy, but I had to make a post about it because of how strongly I felt about it and how much I knew it resonated not just with me, but with everyone. It was that somehow through one of the biggest events of isolationism, not just this country, but the world has ever seen, it's brought our organization closer together than ever before. We have not had a halaqah like this ever before with this many at the same time, on the same night, talking about one message. I got to hear, and this is the kid in me, I got to hear the halaqas from, I'm not going to mention their names at this point, but two of the biggest role models I've had in my entire YM career, and I've been in YM for almost 9 years. And I got to see both of them lead a halaqah, and it was like being a kid again. And going through all my memories of how much I've grown and how much things have changed and how much things are not the same, but things are the same. Where some guys who were leading halaqas back then are the people who are leading them it just happened yesterday. And I was so happy that this organization allowed me to be on a halaqah with guys from Texas, from Florida, from Jersey, from Pennsylvania, New York, Chicago, freaking California, Las Vegas, Atlanta. Like, I'm just naming this bunch right now, and that's not even all of them probably. And subhanAllah, Allah has made it so that in the time where everyone is far apart and nobody can hang out, He brought us closer together. And I pray and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering once again, and not virtual this time, but this time in the day on the day of judgment, we all go to Jannat al-Firdaus together. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. And with that, I'll wrap up. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who come back to Him always, who are patient, who are persistent, and who never waver in our faith, as the Prophet Ayyub never wavered in his faith. And the prophets before him and the prophets after him never wavered in their faith. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who, when the day of judgment comes and Allah looks and we look in our scale of deeds, that we get the book in our right hand. And we go back to this moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these people came together in a time where everyone's afraid and everyone's worried and everyone's scared. And we came together to remember him. And maybe it's that act and those actions that bring us to Jannah. And I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us amongst those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. And I ask Allah to forgive anyone who's already shown the ingratitude, starting with myself. Whenever we questioned Allah, whenever we were ungrateful to Allah with everything we've been given, I ask Allah to forgive us for all of that. Ameen. I ask Allah to give shifa to all of those who are suffering through this virus already. Whoever has relatives, I know someone messaged me already in this call that one of our members' uncles has the virus, subhanAllah. I ask Allah to give him nothing but health. I ask Allah to forgive him, to give him shifa, and to forgive him for any sins that he may have. And to anyone who's affected and has not mentioned it, or even if you know it or you don't know it, may Allah forgive everyone who will have this virus, and everyone who has, and everyone who did have this virus. Ameen. May Allah give health and restore everyone who has this virus, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. May Allah give every single one of them health and bring us back to where we were and even better than what we were. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. And I ask Allah to allow us to be of those who keep the dunya in our hands and the akhirah in our heart. Ameen, ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. I'll end off with that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك